It may have just been the mindset that I was in while watching it, or the fact that we're coming off an excellent episode, but this one didn't pack as big of a punch for me. It had its moments, and was still an overall solid episode, but there were moments that fell flat for me or weren't handled the way I had hoped or expected. Especially with the finale being next week, I was expecting this episode to push the envelope a little farther and set up a packed episode next week. After starting with the short scene showing Cassian and Melshi desperately clinging to a ledge to hide from Imperial fighters, we jump to Ferrix, where we learn that Marva has passed away. I thought that it was to be expected at some point in the season, but I still wish that I had gotten a little more emotional impact from the death given how much time we spent with her. I thought the usage of B2 mourning was a great way of conveying the theme of grief throughout the episode, but other than the droid, I didn't see anything that made me feel the importance of her death. Even though she may not have been the most popular citizen on Ferrix, it still felt like she was a well-looked-upon member of the town, and we didn't see much grieving by the townsfolk other than an overall somber mood. Even Cassian, after learning that his mother died at the end of the episode, doesn't elicit much of a reaction beyond a solemn expression and some watery eyes. I wasn't expecting a full breakdown by any of the characters, but it was personally hard for me to feel too much about her death when I didn't see anyone on screen care too much about it either. While on Ferrix, we also get a deeper look into both Cinta and Corv, who are both watching over the Andor household waiting for Cassian to return home. Both are undercover, so I'm interested to see who becomes suspicious of the other one first. With only one episode left, it's hard to say what will and won't be wrapped up in the season finale, but I'm guessing that we'll see the funeral procession with Marva mentioned take place, which will connect Cassian, Val, Dedra, Cyrell, and all of the other main storylines back to Ferrix. I don't think that they'll completely cut out any of the major characters, but I wouldn't be surprised if Luthen or Mon Mothma have a shorter segment, since neither one will likely be on Ferrix for the crossing of paths. Going over to Cassian's storyline, he actually had only a few short scenes in the episode, but I think all of them show something very important about the Empire and the galaxy. Like I mentioned before, the episode starts with Cassian and Melshi hiding from an Imperial ship, and it shows how easily and quickly the Empire overlooks these individual people. Yeah, a bunch of prisoners escaped on a remote planet, but the Empire isn't concerned enough to send out full search parties looking for all the survivors. One ship per region is enough for a quick sweep. They underestimate the impact that few people can have, and it eventually grows into the rebellion. I'll admit that Cassian's next scene felt very unimportant in the moment, introducing us to native Narkinians as Cassian and Melshi attempt to steal their quad jumper, but are then captured in some sort of webbing. However, after looking back on it, not only did I actually enjoy seeing the new species, but the conversation shows how the Empire prison was harming the environment, and yet no one seems to care about it. These natives are losing access to healthy food and water, and yet the Empire only cares about creating whatever contraptions those were, and keeping these prisoners in line. Cassian later returns back home to Niamos to get his belongings, and already there is someone new living in his house. It's hard to tell how long exactly it had been, but his house was likely sold almost immediately after he was sentenced to prison. He makes a call home and learns that his mother died, and then he and Melshi agree to part ways in order to increase the likelihood of details of the prison getting out. Even though it made sense for them to split up so that the final episode could focus solely on Cassian, rather than the two of them, I was still a little disappointed that Melshi was likely done for the season. Val and Luthen also get quite a lot to do in this episode. Val learns of Marva's passing and goes to inform Luthen, only to find that he isn't there. We've already seen Val and Clea interact once before, and once again we see that Val isn't one to hide behind cover and stories to play by the rules. She is very to the point and doesn't like wasting time. I didn't get much enjoyment from the scene, but as always, I loved getting more Mon Mothma. Mon updates Val on her sticky financial situation, while Leda and her friends converse with an elder. I didn't completely understand the entire situation with Leda and the scene, but I think the important takeaway is how much Mon doesn't understand about her own daughter and their inability to connect. Both Mon and Val express their concern over the old Alderaanian traditions, But Leda seeks out an elder, and this becomes the one thing she enjoys, and Perrin has nothing to do with it too. It seems more and more likely that Mon will end up allowing Davos' son to marry Leda to solve her financial troubles before it's too late, and this may be the final straw in their relationship. That's why we never see or hear from either Leda or Perrin after this. While I'm excited to see how some of the other stories are wrapped up in the finale, this is definitely the one that I'm most interested in seeing wrap up, at least partially before the next season. On Luthen's side, he visits Saw Gerrera and convinces him to not aid in Krieger's attack. Just like their first conversation, the scene was brilliantly acted and full of emotion, and it's always fun seeing different rebel leaders with different ideologies interact with each other. Afterward, Luthen heads to what I assume was Ferrix to try and get to Cassian before the Empire or anyone else can, but he ends up being caught by the Imperial patrol vessel. I wasn't expecting any action in this episode, and even though it was short, it was still very fun to watch. We had seen these shots in most of the trailers, so it was only a matter of time until it happened, but for most of the episode, it was never a thought in my mind that I was waiting for this specific scene. There was enough tension built up throughout the sequence to make me genuinely question whether Luthen would escape or not. And even though we had gotten to see a bit of his ship in earlier episodes, we really see what it's capable of here, between the tractor beam countermeasures, which were a great addition, to the lasers shooting out from the side. For being a one-man fighter, Luthen's ship has so many different functions and abilities that I would love to see it in more scenarios like this. We also got a short scene with Cyril, and this was one of the few times in recent episodes where I find myself really enjoying the character. The character just felt more real to me, and he finally got a bit of information leading to his ultimate goal. With him taking some credit from his house, I assume he's on his way to Ferrix for the finale. Daughter of Ferrix is an expected step down after last week's episode, lacking a huge emotional impact or massive change for all characters, but surprising action and a small build up to the finale making another solid episode, earning a rating of 8 out of 10. Let me know what you thought of the 11th episode in the comments below. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more reviews like this, and remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.